Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks. Welcome to another fun filled, action packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist DT from weatherist.com, the Colonel of Confusion, the Captain of Catastrophe, the Commander of Chaos. It's 1 a.m. I should be in bed, but I'm not. I'm doing this video. So let's do This Week in Weather. Now, here we're going to talk about my spring forecast, so we'll get into that in a little bit. There's a picture of my smiling face, my Weather Risk Gmail account. You want to reach me, the Twitter account, the Facebook account, as if you don't know. Here's the Facebook, there's the website itself. Let's talk about the drought here, the developing, the dry conditions. Now, this is as of March 14th. There's a new one, updated one from this March 21st, but it didn't change much. And you can see that there are some areas in Kansas and Colorado which are in drought too already. Also, Alabama, northern Georgia, Tennessee, western Carolinas as well. And also significant moderate drought here developing over Missouri into the Delta region. So there are some dry conditions here because of the dry winter and warm winter for that matter. Now let's talk about my spring forecast. Now keep in mind, folks, I do a lot of forecasting for grain commodity traders, and they don't like me issuing the spring forecast when they get it. I have to wait usually 6 weeks to release it. That's just the way it is. So this forecast was actually prepared back on February 15th, but I'm just releasing it now. Okay. Now, what I think is driving the pattern here is the QBO, quasi-biennial oscillation. And what this does is, in case you don't know, this is a level of wind which was found at the very top of the atmosphere back in World War II when we were bombing Japan. And it exists over the equator, almost at the edge of outer space. And for some reason, we're not exactly sure why, what happens is that this wind blows from west to east for several months. It could be 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 20 months. We don't know why. Then it becomes neutral for several months, and then it changes direction, goes back to east to west for several months. It could be 6 months, it could be 10 months, it could be 20 months. Again, we don't know why. When it has these big swings like this here, really here and here, big oscillation swings like this, it has a big impact on the weather. Now, in November 2016, the QBO was record positive for November and the third strongest positive value of any time since 1950. December was the strongest we ever saw for any month, period. And it didn't really weaken much in January 2017. Let me show you what I mean. Now, this is another way of plotting it, and this is from the ESRL folks. Again, we notice up here, this is November. That's November 2011 right here. And this is mid-March. And again, plus 13. Now, this value here is plus 14 right in here. So look at this consistently. In fact, in later December, it actually got up to plus 16 for a little bit. And you can see the values here. February plus 14.7, January plus 14.5, December plus 15. Three highest, consistent, strongest QBO values on record since we've been keeping records of this since 1945. Now, this is what the data actually looks like in case you want to see what meteorologists look like, and we have to go through this data. And the idea is to find matches similar to what we're seeing right now. And again, the problem is that there's nothing very similar because this is the record right here. This is where we are right now. These are record values. And you can see, look at the value in February. Plus 15.9. None of these values are plus 15. So, like I said, it was the strongest on record. Now, obviously, that means something. This sort of energy, this QBO, is feeding energy into the Pacific jet stream. And that's why the Pacific jet stream has been pounding California and the West Coast and the Rockies and British Columbia with these massive storms for the past 3 or 4 months. So until the QBO begins to weaken, the overall pattern is not going to weaken. Now, not everybody agrees with my assessment here. Some people think that we're still in a La Nina type of weather pattern atmospherically, which I don't happen to agree with. But that's just my view. So just keep that in mind. This is my ideas. So if we look at all the years where we had very strong positive QBOs, we get these over plus 10 or greater. Okay? These analogs, as you can see right here. 1967, 76, 83, 86, 1991, 1993, 2009, 2011, 2014. Now these are the temperatures. Notice very cold up in here for the most of the spring and close to normal every place else. And the precip very dry over the lower plains and pretty good rains from the Delta into the East Coast and up into the Ohio Valley. So that's if you look at it overall. If we break it down, month by month, we still get this very interesting results. Now, this is what happens when you look at all March since 1950, where you've had a strongly positive QBO. These are the temperatures. And as you can see, it's quite mild over the deep south and the Rockies, the southern Rockies and the Delta, and fairly cold over Canada. And what we actually had, these are temperatures. Notice it's been a little colder in March over this part of the country, but generally notice the warmth we saw up in here. And again, that's a pretty good match to what we saw here. Now let's take a look at temperature. Uh, the temperatures here. And you can see again, this is just an enlargement of the same image. Now, these are temperature anomalies for March, as you can see. And if we break it down month by month, notice again that we can see really, really cold temperatures here, March, way up in here, as you can see. And the warm temperatures are down in this area. And then the dry conditions are very pronounced over the central plains, lower plains, and the Delta region. And still pretty wet on the west coast. And if we look at April, when the QBO is very strongly positive, look at these temperatures. Quite cold over all the west coast, as you can see, and then the upper plains, upper Midwest, that sort of stuff. Not too bad in Virginia and the Mid-Atlantic states, but everybody else does not look like they have a great April here. And if we look at our actual anomalies, again, if we break it down, the ones which we think are the closest matches, we again see very distinct signals here for quite cold in this whole area. As you can see, the Rockies, west coast into the upper plains. Milder, though, on the east coast into the deep south. And look how wet it is over the Midwest here. A lot of severe weather and fairly dry over the deep south as well. And then if we look at May, look how cold these temperatures are for May. Wow. And then finally gets wet over the deep south in May and then much of the Midwest and the east coast. Now let's take a look at the more important weather conditions. Now this is the actual jet stream maps here for, as you can see, Sunday night and for Monday night. And you can see a couple of disturbances in here that aren't doing very much. And you can see these systems. Let me change my marker here so we can get the right color. Yeah. And you can see the system is right here. There's one of them, another little disturbance there. And again, but the big one is this one here coming in. You can see it coming here and then coming on Monday night. But these little disturbances right here don't have a lot of energy with it. Notice the winds here, only around, these are 500 millibar, only around 40 knots, which is not really strong. And sure enough, if you look at the rain on the radar, it is not, these little systems aren't doing much. This is the Sunday evening radar. Now, this is 81 hours out. This is Wednesday afternoon. You can see that that big system coming in from the west coast is now here. As you can see, look at the strong jet stream coming on the base of this thing. And again, you can see the white color here, 80, 90 knots. That's very impressive. And here's the next big system coming down from the Pacific Northwest. So this is likely to bring about severe weather. And you can see it developing here on the weather maps on the Sunday afternoon European. This is the 60-hour and the 72-hour. You can see this big massive system blowing up, bringing significant rain to the dry areas of Kansas and Oklahoma and Missouri and Arkansas. So this is a big rainmaker here. And you can see, in fact, the Storm Prediction Center already has them in an enhanced outlook for day 3. When that probably will be upgraded, I would think, given what I'm seeing on these maps. Now this is 84 hours out. The system is finally pulling out of the lower plains, moving into the central plains and towards the Midwest and the Mississippi River. And also notice we also have a fairly cool area of high pressure right here to the north as well. And their front, you can see their front is running something like this. Here's your low. Okay, so that system comes east. Now this is 108 hours. And of course you can see the main big shortwave right here. And there's another one in California. These folks could get crushed in Southern California with the strong winds. And the winds here are decent. They're 80, 50, 60 knots. And look at these howling winds coming in the Pacific. That's like 90 knots here. So looking at that, because when you have these strong winds coming around the base of the trough and the eastern or southeastern side, it's often an indication of severe weather. This is 700 millibars also for the 30th. You can see the strong winds here over Mississippi, Alabama. Very strong winds right here. You can see it. 60, 65 knots here. And again, another system in this area. So that's just another sign that there's probably going to be some severe weather here on March 30th. There's a big system on the 30th moving into Missouri, driving towards Iowa and Chicago and the heart of the Midwest. And here it is on March 31st. And again, this is probably going to produce significant severe weather. for some areas in the Midwest. Now, by the evening of the 31st into the first here, we have still some energy here, a little bit, but not really that impressive. A little bit over Virginia, North Carolina, and then this big system coming in behind it. And then we can see the system here finally get big rains here on Saturday, April 1st on the East Coast, coming in probably Friday night. That clears the coast, and then this is extended, by 168 hours out. The next system's coming out of the Rockies. You can see it right here, this system right here, and then it moves like that. And then you can see developing more possibly severe weather in these areas. And then finally, this is 192 hours out. Look at this monster coming out of the lower plains into the Midwest. You have strong southeast winds feeding the moisture, and here you can see right in this direction like this. This system, the high, bringing in the east winds as well. And of course, this also has a lot of energy with it. Now, the jet streak on Monday, this is way out here, 198 hours out, April 3rd. But you can see in the afternoon, the maximum daytime heating, nice jet streak here of like 55, 60 knots at 700 millibars. And then if we look at 500 millibars and then 700, you can see that by April 4th, we can see, let me call those up. Notice the strong jet streak right in here, folks. Look at this baby. 100 knots or 90 knots or more. And then at 700 millibars, this one's also coming through Virginia and North Carolina with also more severe weather. So the April 3rd, April 4th event has a lot of potential for the Midwest and the East Coast. That's something you might want to keep an eye on. And as we go further out in time, you can see the jet streak is still there, still howling away, going through the southeastern states with the potential for a lot of severe weather. Further out in time, by the time we get to mid-April, it looks like we get a little bit of a break in the pattern. A bit of a ridge develops here. So it kind of shuts off the energy a little bit. And then we get a little bit of a trough here, somewhat cooler temperatures as well. So we may get a break here where the precipitation shuts off here in mid-April. But it returns, 360 hours out. We can see the pattern is still fairly active in the southern jet stream. So if there's a break here in mid-April, around April 8th or 10th, it's not going to last very long because this specific jet is still howling in this direction. You can see it coming in like this. So that's still bringing these systems in. There's another one here, another one back in here. So it looks like a very active pattern here for April. And that matches the overall seasonal forecast, which has for April being a pretty wet month. Let's think about the MJO. This is what it looks like. In case you don't know, this is the MJO. I just want to point this out to you. This is Australia. See right here? There's India. There's China. So these thunderstorms develop in the Indian Ocean, and they move along in a west to east direction, passing north of Australia. This is Hawaii over here, and then towards South America. And as it does so, it causes the jet stream to change, and that's what causes the overall pattern to change. Currently, the MJO is in the neutral circle, which means it's not doing anything, and all the models through the end of April into May keep it in the neutral circle, and they don't do anything with it. So that's a good thing. It looks like the El Nino is beginning to form a little bit here. This is as of March 22nd. We are seeing some warming there in the equatorial Pacific. And most of the El Nino models are increasing as we get into the summer months, that the El Nino is going to show up. Weak to moderate, and you can see here pretty good condition. This is July, August right in here. You can see this is June, July right in this area, about 1 degree right here. And then it does not get very strong. It kind of levels off here a little bit. So it looks like it's going to be a weak to maybe a moderate El Nino at best. And I would even think mostly probably a week from what I can see. So it's something to watch later on in the summer and into the autumn months. And here's our Mark Twain, which means my talk for this week is over. This is Meteorologist DT. I'll see you on the Facebook page.